This is Financially Fit Radio with Corey Sickles from Safe Harbor Retirement Group. When a part of your financial strategy is out of tune, your long-term goals, your retirement savings, and your legacy can all suffer. With many years of experience in the financial industry, Corey provides his clients and prospects with the information they need regarding Social Security, retirement income planning, wealth management, and much more. Listen in as we address your financial concerns and provide helpful solutions to put you on the path to achieving your retirement goals. And now, here is Financially Fit Radio with Corey Sickles.
Welcome to another episode of Financially Fit Radio. I'm Corey Sickles, representing the team here at Safe Harbor Retirement Group and Wealth Advisors. If you'd like more information about the insights on today's show, don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can give us a call at 614-760-0670 or visit us on the web at safeharboroh.com. And while you're exploring our website, be sure to navigate to the radio page. There you can catch up on previous shows and even subscribe to our program through popular podcast platforms like Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, or Spotify. For engaging visual content on various financial subjects, feel free to drop by our YouTube page as well. Just type in or search for Safe Harbor Retirement Group. You know, we're here to address any inquiries you might have or to arrange either an in-person or virtual meeting. Remember, all meetings are complimentary and carry no obligation. Your financial well-being is our priority, so let us know how we can assist you best. Well, today we're going to talk about the FIRE movement. And really, what is the FIRE movement? You might have read about it in the news. Maybe you don't know really what it is, but that's really what we're going to do today. So before we kind of dive into that topic, let me introduce to you my co-host this week and every week, and that's Tony Shore. Tony, how are you today?
I am here this week and every week because I love it, Corey. Love doing the show with you. I'm doing great. Had a pretty good week last week. Spent a lot of time with the family, and now that we're empty nesters, it was really cool because Sunday night, we had all five of us together. My wife and our three kids were at home. It felt like old times. We had a nice dinner together, and those times are getting rarer and rarer. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
When the whole family's together. It doesn't happen as often, so when it does, I really love that. But, yes, I've had a good time, good week. How about you, Corey? What's going on in your life?
It's hard to believe it. We hear, October's almost around the corner here, Tony.
Yeah.
Fall is coming quicker and quicker. That means, those nice warm days are going to turn into cool. And then that only leads one thing, and that makes me always think of winter.
Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah, don't jinx it. Don't bring that on any sooner than it has to come. I've been enjoying summer, although it's been a hot one.
Yeah, football season is here too.
Yep.
Which is always great.
That's fun.
And it's a great time to be able to watch some football. But from a business standpoint, Tony, we're pretty busy. The fourth quarter, end of third, fourth quarter is always a real busy time of the year with new people coming into the office to meet with. But more importantly, we have a lot of people that are focusing on retiring here come January, and this is kind of when we really start working to make sure that what they have done saved wise is going to be ready and, start that countdown in order for them to retire here in 2024.
Yeah, that's what you do. You help people plan ahead so they'll have that income. And I know you help people turn that income on, that retirement income, once they're ready to retire. So this is the season. I know this is the busy season for you guys over there. You've been really busy, and it's just going to keep going through January. But maybe slow down a couple of days for the holidays and then back at it in January. But today you mentioned the FIRE movement. That's F-I-R-E. What does that stand for, Corey? What are we talking about today?
Well, Tony, that stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early. And really what we're talking about here is it's a lifestyle and financial movement, and it's gained a lot of popularity, especially for a lot of the younger people out there today. But really the primary goal of the FIRE movement is to achieve financial independence, retire early, and it's often before, of course, the traditional age of 65. And some of the things that you're even reading about today, we're talking about people retiring in their 40s and 50s. really in order to, achieve that financial independence. So it's not easy to do. There's going to be a lot of unknowns. So I thought, the first part of the show, we'll just kind of talk about, really what some of the principles and the concepts of that, of what the FIRE movement really is. And then we'll kind of also discuss a little bit later on, a lot of the pros and cons of the FIRE movement as well.
Sure. I'm sure there are plenty of both to talk about. But explain for our listeners. I mean, we've talked about early retirement a couple of times before, but explain to our listeners exactly what the FIRE movement is.
Well, typically what it involves, Tony, is creating a nest egg, for you and your spouse. And really one of the things that you're really trying to do is generate passive income. And that passive income is going to come through investments such as stocks or real estate. When we start talking about stocks, right, really what we're talking about are probably stocks with dividends, things like that. But it's going to be something that can also generate some type of income for you, in retirement, right?
Right.
And really what we're also talking about, it's kind of retiring from that traditional 9-to-5 job, right? Before you reach the age of 65 or 60 or whatever that particular time frame of what your goal is. But as I mentioned earlier, some people are trying to retire, even earlier, which is the 40s and 50s. And we were kind of talking before the show here. I was reading an article about this on, how, a couple got married. I think they had 2 kids. They're in their 30s. And in order to kind of get into this FIRE movement, they moved back in with their parents, which I'm sure is great for the parents, right?
In their 30s, they moved back in with their parents.
They moved back in with their parents so they could
had to save money.
They had to
be
save
part
money
of this FIRE movement.
That's exactly right. They downsized to only one car. And then, their thoughts was, now we actually, since we're living with our parents, well, that's daycare, right? Oh. So now so now they're, now the parents are taking care of the kids during the day or, until they're old enough to get into school. So, I mean, that's kind of an extreme part of it is not only are you trying to save more, but you're doing something where you're going to rely on somebody else to take care of your kids as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's I don't know, that doesn't sound too good to me as a parent of 3 grown adult children. I hope none of them are listening to the show and get any ideas, Corey. That's crazy.
Well, yeah, exactly right. I'm sure a lot of parents out there listening to the show today don't want to have this come in, this thought come into, their kids as well. And really what we're talking about too, Tony, when we start talking about this is it's really, it's a high savings rate too, right? And really what we're talking about is being able to save between 50 to 75% of whatever your income is that you can kind of throw to this nest egg in order to kind of achieve this retirement, right?
Right.
So you're trying to save as quickly as possible with the most amount of money that you can put in there as well. And just like we just talked about a second ago, then from a living standpoint, you're going to probably try to live as frugal as you possibly can, right? You want to be able to, avoid unnecessary expenses, you want to avoid debt, and you want to find ways to probably live more efficiently. That's where you see a lot of these tiny homes and all this stuff coming into play too.
Yep.
You hear more and more about all that type of stuff too, right? So, it's not, believe me, this is not for everybody.
Right. Right.
We were kind of talking about this too. I mean, my philosophy is while you're younger, making some money, that's the time to go out and do traveling and things like that.
When you're healthy and young. Yeah.
Exactly right.
Right.
So anyway, from an investment standpoint, when we start talking about, one of the things they really kind of invest in is like low cost index funds, dividend paying stocks, real estate, and other assets that can generate passive income and also grow over time. So, blue chip stocks would be a great investment here just for the fact that they're paying dividends, and over the long run, they do grow. But you're looking for being able to, to take out a certain percent. And if you have that passive income coming in, that's a good way to be able to be able to live off of while you do retire early.
Right. And I think you make a great point because the goal, I think, of the FIRE movement, from what I've read and what you're saying, is save as much as possible, put as much into a nest egg as possible, and live as frugally as possible so you can grow that nest egg to a point where you can retire early. And when we say retire early, people in the FIRE movement, I've read 40 years old, 45, 50 at the on the high end, 50. So their goal is to get to a certain number as soon as possible, and to do that, they have to really downsize. Now, you mentioned, your philosophy, and we talked about this before the show. Well, wouldn't you want to, when you're young and healthy and in your working years, you're going to have to make a lot of sacrifices when you're younger in order to retire early. And you've got to balance. Are you the type of person that wants the reward later? And is that good? Like, is it worth it? And will you then still have to live frugally in retirement, or will you have enough to live really, really comfortable? You have to ask yourselves these things. And I don't think this is a decision that should be made without working with a financial services professional like yourself, Corey.
Well, I mean, I think you're exactly right, because, we'll get into some of the pros and cons a little bit later here, Tony. And, of course, one of the big things you have to worry about is, okay, you saved all this money, but how long is this money going to last me?
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. And I know there are certain numbers they throw out for the FIRE movement, like you can retire as soon as you've saved X amount of dollars, right? Isn't that a part of it?
Yeah, it is. And, even while you're working, one of the things that you probably have to do, or it's pretty common, is they get what they call that side hustle, right? So not only are they working during the day, but they're going to have some type of freelance job when they come home as well, to be able to generate a little bit more income so they can save a little bit more as well. Again, this is not for everybody. It's not one size fits all. And the other part of it is everyone's going to have a little bit, different degrees of commitment to it as well, right? I mean, how long can you frugally live like this in order to try to save, $1.5, $2 million, $3 million in order to get to your number that you want to be able to get to as quickly as possible?
Yeah, one number I read, and I don't know how old the article was, but it was like 1.8, they said. But again, as you always say on the show, everybody's situation is different. And, you have to look at your situation. So whether or not you have a spouse, all those things. I know that you want to let our listeners know how to get a hold of you. So how can our listeners get a hold of you?
Your financial well-being is our priority. So let us know how we can assist you best. You can give us a call at 614-760-0670 or visit us on the web at safeharboroh.com. Well, Tony, we've been talking about the FIRE movement. And for anyone that just kind of joined us, really what we're talking about is financial independence, retire early. And it's just retiring, before that magical age of 65. It might be in your 40s, it might be in your 50s. But, that's really what we've been talking about. And what I kind of want to talk about right now are what some of the pros of this are, Tony. Of course, the first one is everyone wants to retire as early as possible.
Yeah, most people do. I mean, I do know people that actually like their jobs and want to work longer, but I think the majority of us have, at least at one time or another, fantasized about retiring early, right?
That's exactly right. Because if you do retire early, now you can travel, you can spend more time on your hobbies. You might even want to be able to volunteer or make it more meaningful to you.
Sure.
And of course, it's always being able to spend more time with your kids, but more importantly, probably your grandchildren as well. But that's probably one of the biggest ones, is if you retire early, you're going to be able to enjoy life a little bit longer as well. When I go back and I look at my grandparents, right? They worked, they got a pension. They didn't retire until after 65. And, I think my grandfather passed away around the age of 72 or 73. But, that generation's kind of changed now. People are living longer. If you're married, the odds are one of you's going to live to your 90s. So I think people are trying to be in a situation where they don't work their entire life, and then all of a sudden they pass away as soon as they do retire, which is why, which is one of the things about this, this FIRE or early retirement, right?
Yeah.
I think another pro with this is what I would say is flexibility, right? You can design your own life on your own terms. You can choose how you spend your time and pursue the passions and projects that matter to you. A lot of people want to volunteer, give back to the community, travel, hobbies, or whatever that might end up being. But you're going to have a lot more flexibility if you don't have that 9-to-5 job that you do have to go to day in and day out.
Right. Yeah, that's huge. And that's a good point. I know a lot of people want to do things and want to retire early so they can do things. But, Corey, the problem is you have to have enough money. Those things take money, like travel, taking the grandkids on trips. Those types of things cost money. And so that's the catch, right?
That is the catch. And I think one of the other things, though, too, Tony, is, by you being able to maybe go down this path, that means you've actually had to look at what your budget is today, too, right?
Yep.
And when you're looking at your budget, that means you've probably have been frugal, which is going to probably make it a little bit easier when you do retire, because one of the things that you do have to do when you go into retirement is you have to live off of a budget.
Yeah.
And a lot of people aren't used to that because, they have all this income coming in. They can spend what they want. Hopefully you're saving. But now when you're retired, it's based upon maybe Social Security, or pensions are kind of going away, but it's kind of more or less how much money have you saved in order to really enjoy the retirement that you want to be able to do. So it does create a savings discipline, and it requires you to really have a forceful budget that you actually have to implement day one.
Yeah. Yeah, and budgeting is good, even though people don't like that word. It is really important to do regardless, but boy, if you're going to be part of the FIRE movement, you have to be very fiscally responsible, and it takes discipline. Like you said, it's a certain type of person that can make it work, and people do make it work. It's not like we're trying to say you can't make the FIRE movement work. There are a lot of advantages to retiring early, like you say, spend time with your kids, do things you like to do, don't have to be beholden to a boss, or if you don't get along with your boss or your coworkers, maybe you're just sick of your job and you have other things you want to do. And those are the people that make the FIRE movement work and have the discipline and do it. And they make other people just, hey, I'm retired. Well, you're only 50 years old. How can you be retired, or 45? Well, they did the FIRE movement. They were disciplined and made the sacrifices necessary, right?
Yeah, they probably did that. And hopefully they also did, one of the things that if you do it the right way, Tony, you can also be pretty efficient from a tax standpoint as well, which means all your money's not in your 401k. Maybe if you have outside investments, it's taxed less. So if you actually work with an advisor, it might be able to set you up where you're going to be a little bit more tax efficient, to be able to take advantage of what you have invested to make sure that you're not going to be taxed on that entire amount, for the rest of your life as well. And I think the biggest reason why people want to do this, whether this is true or not, but they think it's going to reduce stress because they don't have to worry about going to work day in and day out.
Sure.
You're probably going to have other stresses now because,
Sure.
Right? Because, is my money going to last me? Am I doing all the right things in order to make sure that I'm not going to run out of money when I get into retirement?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about some of the negatives. I think there are more negatives than positives, and there are some big negatives, aren't there?
There are. The first one is that high savings rate, right? Which means you're going to have to not be able to do a lot of things while you're in that save mode. You have to be a little bit more frugal, and that's a frugal lifestyle, and you're going to have to sacrifice a lot of things in the short term. Another one, Tony, is market risk, right? Relying on your investment for your income means you're exposed to market volatility. And a significant market downturn could have a huge impact on your retirement plans.
Yeah.
If we were going to experience another 2008, 2009, or early 2000s, that's going to have a huge impact on your overall portfolio, especially if you're taking money out of it at that point in time. And of course, I don't think you can talk about risk at all with retirement unless you talk about healthcare costs.
Yeah, that's the big one on retiring early, isn't it? I think this is actually the biggest negative that people might not think about to early retirement period, let alone the FIRE movement, which is being financially independent, retiring early at a younger age.
That's exactly right. I mean, healthcare costs can derail you. You're going to have to pay for all this. You're not going to be able to go into Medicare until the age of 65. So you got to go out and find out you got to go out and purchase your own healthcare costs, and it's not cheap anymore. It's going to keep going up. So that's something that of course is going to have a huge impact. And the more that you spend on your healthcare, right? If you're not healthy, that just means that you're taking it from your nest egg, which could cause now an issue with longevity, right?
Sure.
Right? So if you're taking money out for healthcare costs, especially unexpected, now you're kind of getting into that risk of, am I going to have enough money to last my lifetime if I do live in my 80s or 90s as well?
Exactly. And what people don't realize is when they're working, their employer covers half of their health insurance, usually.
That's exactly right.
At least half. And then when they turn 65, Medicare covers a lot of it. There's still expenses. Exactly right. There's still expenses. But in between there, if you retire early, your work's no longer going to cover your health care in most cases, and you're not eligible for Medicare, so you have to cover 100% of your health care.
That's exactly right. And with that being said, is you're not even going to be able, if you retire earlier, you're not even be able to think about taking money from Social Security, and that could be years as well.
Yeah.
So, and what is Social Security going to look like? Now what you're even looking at, if you don't have 35 years of service into Social Security, then you're going to get lower because those years that you don't have are going to be zeros, which is going to lower your overall Social Security that you're going to be able to receive, as well.
Because you're going to stop working during your high earning years, so you're not going to have those extra high earning years to raise what you're going to get from Social Security.
Yeah. So, the FIRE movement causes a lot of uncertainty too, right?
Right.
You have unexpected life events that can disrupt your plans.
Yeah.
Whether it's healthcare or whether maybe now you have to take care of your parents, even though they took care of you back in the 30s.
Sure.
But eventually that could come around. And, in the last part of all this too, I think we really got to think about is that social impact as well. You're not going to be able to go in and day out and maybe deal with people in the office. It's going to be based upon who you're actually hanging out with. And odds are there's not going to be too many other people retired at your age.
Yeah.
So it could have a big social impact as well. So those are, some of the cons about the FIRE movement. It's not for everybody, but I think you need to work with an advisor to make that happen. And, we're really here to help and guide you. At the end of the day, everyone wants to retire early, whether it's in your 40s or 50s, or maybe you want to retire at 62 instead of 65. But the only way to be able to do that is work with an advisor, put a financial plan in place, and that's what we're here to do.
All right. Well, great topic today. The FIRE movement is an interesting one. I recommend our listeners, no matter when they're thinking about retiring, get a hold of you. How can they do that?
Yeah, for our listeners out there, just give us a call at 614-760-0670, or you can always visit us online at safeharboroh.com. We're here to help and guide you, put together a financial plan so you can retire and really feel comfortable or have maybe a sense of a worry-free retirement. That's really what we're here to do. So just give us a call at 614-760-0670 or visit us at safeharboroh.com to schedule that complimentary, no-obligation meeting with us.
All right. Sounds great. Well, Corey, great show today. Listeners, that does it for today's episode of Financially Fit Radio.
Join us next week for another episode of Financially Fit Radio.
Thank you for listening to Financially Fit Radio. Don't pay too much for taxes or retire without a sound income plan. For more information, contact Corey Sickles at Safe Harbor Retirement Group. Call 614-760-0670 or visit their website at financiallyfitoh.com.
All matters discussed during the show are for informational purposes only. Each individual situation may vary, and the opinions expressed here may not apply to everyone. Materials presented are believed to be from reliable sources, and no representations can be made as to its accuracy. All ideas and information should be discussed in detail with one of our qualified representatives prior to implementation. We are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration, the Federal Medicare Program, or any other government agency. Calling this number will direct you to a licensed sales agent.